Yo, welcome back everyone. It's Wednesday. So as I mentioned on Monday, today we're taking a break from the Vader series to get back into the main Star Wars run with Star Wars issue number 4. Although Star Wars issue 4 wasn't released until after Vader number 4, it actually takes place between Vader issue number 1 and 2 in chronology. So the chronological order up until this point ends up being Star Wars issues 1 through 3, which covers the events on Cymoon-1, Vader issue 1, which covers Vader returning to Palpatine after Cymoon-1, and then Star Wars issue 4. Now, to recap the events of the immediately preceding issue, which is Vader number 1, Vader number 1 begins with Vader visiting Jabba ahead of his actual expected arrival for personal business. He has a favor to ask of Jabba, which is to enlist the aid of bounty hunters Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum. Boba Fett's bounty is tracking down the boy from the Death Star, alive, and Black Chrysanthemum is locating the gentleman that Vader sees meet with Emperor Palpatine in the same issue, later revealed to be a researcher named Silo-4. But we'll dive more into his story on Friday when we pick back up with Vader issue number 5. So where does this issue begin? At Jabba's palace, of course. This is Vader's formal arrival on behalf of the Empire. Bib Fortuna is welcoming the negotiator himself to the palace to deal with Jabba. Now, initially when I read this issue, I read it out of chronology as I hadn't begun the Vader series yet. A bit of the conversation between Jabba and Vader and the general tone makes a lot more sense after knowing about the events of Vader issue number 1. Vader's terms to Jabba are pretty simple. Give the Emperor what he wants and he will allow you to live. This concludes the negotiations. Jabba being Jabba laughs and commends Vader for his bargaining technique. Much to Vader's chagrin, Jabba carries on to comment about the Death Star and Cymoon-1 setbacks, which Vader immediately refutes as rebel lies and propaganda. Jabba responds, in spite of all that, the Empire can have whatever resources they need as long as Jabba is paid well. Vader replies in kind, saying that Jabba will be paid whatever the Empire decides to pay him. Jabba continues posturing, saying it would be a shame if the supplies were intercepted by pirates or giant space slugs. The Outer Rim is a wild place after all, and Coruscant is very far away. Vader is done with negotiations at this point and closes out by stating, the Empire is more than prepared to deal with pirates and space slugs as easily as they deal with obstinate Hutts. Now, good foreshadowing here on both Jabba's and Vader's part. We later see in Vader issue number 2 that the supplies are indeed being intercepted by the Crimora crime syndicate, pirates, and Vader handily destroys the pirates. After a little more back and forth, Jabba agrees and Vader begins to leave, however is stopped as Jabba insists on closing all of his business ventures with watching someone die. Something die. Elsewhere, across the galaxy, the rebels are recuperating. Han and Chewie are fixing up the Falcon, 3PO is being reassembled, Leia is planning her next move with Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar, and Luke is wallowing in his misery. Leia is convinced that the rebels aren't doing enough. Mind you, they just blew up the Death Star and the Empire's largest weapons factory on Cymoon-1. Admiral Akbar echoes this exact sentiment, telling Leia that between those two victories and a dozen other attacks, not to mention bombings at Quat and Imdar, he doesn't know what more they could possibly be doing. Leia remains adamant in her sentiment, stating they have only wounded the Empire and the Empire is far from crippled. Also of note, the princess's discussion with Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar indicates that the rebels are still looking for a more permanent base of operations, and that Leia is pushing her team too hard. In suit, Leia starts to approach Luke with a new mission. However, Luke immediately declines, saying that he's no Jedi and that he's leaving. Now, back on Tatooine, someone in Mos Eisley that looks eerily reminiscent of Zam Wesell is looking for Han Solo, likely to collect his bounty. Also on Tatooine, Vader is out in the Dune Sea sailing with Jabba aboard his skiff as Jabba's thugs are hunting Bantha from above as they travel toward the Sarlacc. Jabba and Vader discuss Obi-Wan and Luke. On the topic of Luke, Jabba in passing comments, "Who knew anyone of note was ever born on Tatooine?" as the panel zooms in on Vader's visage. Excellent artistry from John Cassaday. Back at the moving Rebel headquarters, Luke sets off in his X-Wing. Destination? Tatooine. I'm assuming Luke will go to Obi-Wan's place and find that container with his name on it that we saw at the end of issue number 3. This issue ends with someone asking about information on Kenobi. It's revealed that this person does in fact know that Kenobi is dead, as the final panel reveals that this is none other than Boba Fett himself. So this was an interesting issue, and I stated this the last time we saw Vader and Jabba working together, but I never really would have seen Vader and Jabba working together due to Anakin's history with the Hutts and slavery. And if anything, this goes to show how truly defeated Vader has become under Palpatine, in my opinion, or at least a shadow of his former self. We more accurately see Luke in his sadness, in his despair, and I think this whole Luke arc was essentially put in here to remind us that Luke wasn't always an optimist, or at least try to semi-retcon his personality from the original trilogy to prepare us for episode 8, which was Luke in his despair. We'll get into that in some other video, some later down the line. What did you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.